everybody. Margo Kahnrose CMO at Skai, and I am lucky to be joined here at the Cannes Lion. How do you want to pronounce it? What's yours?
I've heard it's Cannes. Like I asked
like
the French. Yeah, the French say it's Cannes. It's like when the Spaniards say Barcelona, it's legit Barcelona.
All right.
So we're in Cannes.
We're in Cannes.
It sounds cheesy.
Yeah, I know.
But
I feel like more chic saying
I know.
Cannes.
So you can say
No,
Cannes.
I'm going to say Cannes. Here we are at Cannes Lion 2023. It's been a crazy week. We are on Thursday, end of the week. And I am excited to be joined here by Sarah Hofstetter from Profitero. Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself for a minute?
Well, you just heard my name. I am president of Profitero, an e-commerce acceleration company, and I am thrilled to be here. And I did not think I would ever be back in Cannes, and yet here I am. So
here you are.
Yep.
Sarah is underplaying her accomplishments. She's like a veteran of this industry. I hope you're not insulted by that term. A lot of women have been this week.
I really know.
A compliment.
Got the battle scars. Why not?
And an influencer in the space, and also the co-host of the Brave Commerce podcast. So she is no stranger to these conversations, and we are going to talk all things breaking through omnichannel barriers. And let's jump in.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that we're talking to all of our guests about is, and that's been impacting the way we've been operating as a business this year as well, is the recession, not a recession / completely bizarre, uncertain macroeconomic climate that we're trying to operate in. And you work with brands all the time and, top marketers. And, I'm just curious to hear from you. Is this part of the conversation this year? And, where are the challenges and what are the kind of decisions that need to be made as opposed to years before?
It's a great question. One of the things that I find so fascinating is that this is a question that people have been talking about for the past 3.5 years. It's just been about a different segment of macroeconomic, which in theory should not be macro, but it is, right? Because what happened, pandemic hit, and all consumer behavior changed. Things that were super successful became completely unsuccessful. Things that you've never heard of being successful in decades became super successful. And sitting in the commerce space, obviously consumer behavior changed in the way that people were buying. But then what ended up happening? We had a run on toilet paper. Who would have thought this was what was going to happen?
Yeah.
So the things that we took for granted obviously did not get taken for granted. But from a macroeconomic perspective, there have been all these different headwinds that have been matched with tailwinds. So supply chain crisis. Yeah. Okay, so everybody's like, okay, there's a supply chain crisis, the economy is going to go under. No, they had inflation. Inflation actually helps a lot of businesses recover a lot of costs. It hurt consumers. Consumers got a stimulus. So like every time one thing happened, something else happened to counterbalance it. So now here we are. Supply is not entirely back, but heavily back. Resources are back. The whole Great Resignation has had a backlash off that. So now we're sitting here in 2023 and we have to say, okay, well, what needs to be true? And the only thing that seems to be true is the consistency of change. And so what's going to be with the economy? I think you have to stop chasing the symptom and start understanding what's behind it. The symptom could be pricing. It could be supply chain. It could be talent. It could be war. But the ultimate thing is, how ready are you to get outside of your comfort zone? How ready are you to actually see whatever that change is and be ready to react to it, right? Like life's not about what gets thrown on you. Then like everybody ends up with a disgusting victim complex, and really nobody likes talking to anybody with a victim complex.
Right.
It's about how you react to that.
Yeah. I mean, I've actually seen a lot of, using the economy and just the uncertainty of how this year was going to play out as like an excuse not to do things in marketing that, you otherwise would feel like you had to do and maybe don't feel like are the best, kind of tactics, but all of a sudden, like we can get away with not doing that this year. Are you seeing anything like that?
So that's a really good question. I I thought, I mean, as a veteran, I've been through a few recessions, and it's those who actually persevere and don't hide, right? Like even when the pandemic first hit, a whole bunch of marketers were like, okay, we're calling up everything. We're not doing anything. We have to just, obviously we all have to protect our families and everything like that. But a lot of them paused spending. And then you started seeing some companies innovate radically. The way the Home Depot actually created click and collect, for example, I don't know how long it would have taken the Home Depot to get around to click and collect, but necessity was the mother of invention.
100%.
And people were doing all these DIY things, not just because they were home and bored, but because they had to figure out how to make a space for their kids' schooling and all that other stuff, but nobody wanted to walk into a Home Depot. The way most food brands came up with quicker recipes. And so it can kickstart motivation, but that only happens if you've got the belief system that this can actually be an opportunity. So it's a little bit of courage and conviction. I think there are plenty of reasons to be concerned. And I'm not saying that certain things like right-sizing staff is necessarily wrong for certain companies who might have overstaffed.
Right.
But again, reality is a great way to center yourself, not hopes and dreams.
Totally. And, one of the things that, you talked a lot about like the pandemic and all the behavioral changes that spurred, one of the things that it did was get consumers adopting online fulfillment, e-commerce at a much, I don't need to tell everyone what they already know, at a much faster clip than they were pacing in terms of adoption before that. And, that meant as a customer, all of a sudden you are an omnichannel customer in a much bigger and more meaningful way than ever before, where you're bouncing between all kinds of different, online engagements, all the different publishers. They all kind of become a blend to the consumer of places where you can engage, where you can discover, and where you can now, transact, right? So marketers in general, what we're finding is the consumer is omnichannel, marketers need to become omnichannel. But the technology, I mean, we both have worked, on the tech side as well, like that this technology just doesn't operate that way. We had very, very siloed point solutions, channel-focused point solutions, to work with. So curious to hear, first of all, your thoughts on all of that. And also just like, what does technology need to do now? What's the new role?
In the same way that these marketers are trying to organize to mirror, to reflect consumer behavior, so too must ad tech and pretty much anybody else. The entire ecosystem, ultimately, we're following the consumer. If the consumer changes and the marketers don't change quickly enough, there's no incentive for the tech companies to change. Yeah. So and this is completely not true, this is purely an example. So let's say you sell to a CMO and I sell to a head of insights. So if you sell to a head of a CMO and that buyer wants one thing, and I sell to the head of insights and that buyer wants something else, why on earth should we even bother working together?
Right.
Because it's in the best interest of the consumer. We're in the B2B space. There's no alignment. So the brands themselves, the organizations, the businesses need to be realistically aligned, not saying that's like BS, oh, we're all omnichannel. You're not. Most businesses are still not omnichannel. Most businesses are still not thinking, oh yeah, like my shopper does my lower funnel or my retail media does my lower funnel or any of that stupidity, truly. So I think the fact that everybody's speaking it is the incentive, but I have to say I give a lot of credit to us and others in the space that realize how important the interoperability is.
Yeah.
We need the tech environment to be interoperable for our customers to be able to get there. So yes, we actually have to lead by becoming interoperable on our own versus waiting for the consumer to do something, for then the brands to do something, and then we're going to do something. Then we're purely reactionary, not helpful.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we've seen, this is like relative to the last 5 years, we've seen that consumers now have opinions about the technology that is fueling their engagements with brands. And they will speak up if they are not, getting value out of it, or if they feel exploited, or, if it's creepy, and, hence GDPR and everything that has come from that. So to me, it's like, it used to be marketers could do whatever marketers wanted. Like we were the ones kind of architecting the journey and puppeteering it all. And now consumers, if they don't feel heard, if they don't feel respected, if their boundaries are being trampled on, they're going to cut you off as a brand. Now talking about the businesses that we're trying to support through tech. So, to me, that's the biggest impetus for us as B2B marketers to start thinking about the end customer.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. The irony of the whole thing is that one of my favorite quotes was from Jeff Bezos, that is, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And think about what people say about Amazon when they're not in the room.
Right, totally.
But it used to be social media. Now it's ratings and reviews. But it's any kind of engagement. So just know, and I think it's been true for at least a decade and a half, is that consumers' voices are louder than brands. So either invite them to the party or you're going to be singing off gate.
And thanks to the e-commerce adoption, the digital shelf, which is something, you guys talk about a lot. All the competition is at equal, eye level, equal playing field online, so if you piss off a customer, they know who to go to next. Like there's 10 others, in your product category, that are equally accessible and, maybe more exciting if they're not a household, if they're D2C or something like that. So, cool. So I actually would love to hear a little bit about, the types of intelligence that Profitero is helping, the industry kind of decode this whole mess with. And, maybe there are some commonalities in terms of strategies that clients are using and the way they're leveraging the data that you guys are able to provide.
I wish there were commonalities. It would make my job so much easier. But I would say, as an e-commerce data insights acceleration company, one of the hardest things we have to do is figure out how to modulate based on a client's maturity in e-commerce, the market's maturity in e-commerce. We're a global organization. So you cannot treat, the Netherlands is one of the fastest growing e-commerce markets out there. 2 years ago, they were not. So how do you make sure that the folks in the Netherlands actually know how to best unlock data? And they're they're natively omnichannel. So they just have a very different profile than, say, the UK, that was very mature in the last mile delivery space, versus France, which has long been a fantastic click and collect space. So it's modulating to the client, it's modulating to their maturity, and then it's modulating to ultimately who pays the bill. So who pays the bill for e-commerce within the organization? If it rolls into sales, if it rolls into marketing, if it rolls into insights, if it rolls into shopper, if it rolls to the head of IT. The answer is so different with every organization. So for me, it's not about upskilling, like, here's how you use our data.
Yeah.
It's more like, here's how, what do you ultimately need to achieve? Revenue, profit, share. Okay, so which one of those levers is most important to you at the given moment? And then how do we align our jobs to be done towards doing that? Because once you do that, then the end game is so much more interesting. Coming from the marketing world before I was at Profitero, we were always trying to create a proxy for our conversion, right? And everything is about, we'll drive the awareness, we'll bring them down the funnel, and then they'll run the store and they'll convert.
Right.
Now it's so fluid, which is phenomenal. But my goal is to make sure that these brands, no matter who the stakeholder is, understand that actually perfecting how they're showing up online affects everything. It affects price, promo, packaging, profitability. It's a lot of P's. I don't even know if those are the 4 P's.
Profitero.
Yes. That was very subliminal, but I'll take it. But yeah, it's like all of these things that start getting impacted by it. But if you don't recognize that you can see daily price fluctuations at any given moment, for you and your competitors, then you can determine, am I going to go into my JVP with Walmart and talk to them about taking on price? I don't know.
Super interesting. I think, the work of marketing is changing, right? So the skill set that marketers have, it's not about here's the tech, to your point, and here's the signals, and here are some best practices. It's more here's the intel that you can't get yourself. And the work is now, what do you do with that? And how do you best leverage it? And, how do you make it a superpower as opposed to, just a steep learning curve all the time? And I feel like dovetails us quite nicely into the buzziest topic of the moment, a lot of hype, but generative AI, right? Which, our companies, like, we've been working in this space, we've been leveraging AI for a decade. It's not actually anything new. It's the generative piece and the pace at which it's kind of taking on its own life. That's really exciting and terrifying. And we got to make bets. Curious about, what do you see as the most opportunistic piece of that for marketers? And, maybe what's the watch out?
I'm going to talk about the watch out largely because I think that all that's been said.
Yeah.
The thing I'm actually most excited about, I'm not naturally a numbers person. I'm definitely much more of a humanities and arts kind of person. So I feel like I have to work twice as hard to understand numbers. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have to. Of course I do. This is my job. However, one of the things that I've always prided myself on is being able to turn numbers into stories and turn story into business. AI can do that. And so I don't think most people can do that. I think I do it okay. I don't do it as well as generative AI. So if I'm sitting here at Profitero collecting 70 million SKUs a day, hundreds of different permutations of the data in different ways, different attributes and whatnot, and then I just want to say, you know what, where am I killing it in search and where do I need to beef up? You can pull all that out of Profitero. But that's a unique question for me, for my data. So when you can sit there and take a certain data set and then just be able to ask a certain type of question and get that back, then I'm not sitting here, exporting to a spreadsheet, using an API, marrying it with a data lake. It's actually doing a lot of the work for us. And frankly, that's not the work anybody here, I think. That's not the kind of work a lot of people want to be doing. They just want to know the answer. So it's like, okay, so you're going to tell me where I'm killing it in search, where I'm not killing it in search. Well, what about the top 10? What about the top 10 results? How do I feel about that?
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, what is the keyword where I'm paying the most? When you start getting into that and you can use generative AI to answer those questions, then what you do next is okay, you know what, you and I, we got to get on a call. We need to think through how we become more interoperable, because now it's going to be so much easier for the client, which means that you get your hands less dirty with the stuff that's lower thinking and more dirty with the things that's higher thinking.
Yeah.
It's just more rewarding. So
it's like a return to the original, kind of skill set of strategy and thinking and creativity and,
exactly.
Communication, as opposed to hands-on keyboard.
Exactly. And it might still require that, but I think if you think about different applicability for generative AI, I think that's where it gets real exciting.
I agree. It's actually a great take, because a lot of people are just talking about creative optimization and ad variations. Okay, cool.
Yeah, cool. I've seen a lot of that so far, and yes, I think that is 1.0 thinking. I also think you're going to run into tone deafness.
Yeah,
I think that there are certain things that
mistakes.
Yes, and the truth is, we're going to run into mistakes here also. Part of the whole journey is actually acknowledging this is new. That's why people call things demo, alpha, beta, MVP. Everybody's going to work out the kinks.
Mm-hmm.
What you can't do is pretend that this is human when it's not. I would much rather be transparent. So let's just say we were doing dynamic creative optimization through AI, and it's terrible. Nobody knows how it was made. So if it's terrible, that's a reflection on you as CMO. That'd be terrible. So
100%.
I think we have to get more comfortable with it, but we also have to think about the role that disclosure plays in all of this as well.
Totally. I mean, imagine a world where you have a flag on everything that says generated by AI, and it's a disclaimer.
Exactly.
And it's not where you want to get. That's not the brand customer connection that you're trying to make. But this is we don't know where the fallibilities are yet.
I mean, think about the I wouldn't even say OG, but ish IVRs when you're when you call for customer service, right? And what's the first thing you say? Representative.
Yeah.
Right? So obviously that stuff's not perfect. People still use it, but you have to, you know that you're talking to a robot. fine. I don't mind that I'm talking to a robot. If my robot can answer my question, I don't need a human.
Right.
So we gotta wait till tech gets better.
Yeah.
And it's incumbent on us to make sure that we're using it in the ways that'll best unlock value.
Amazing. Okay, so this is the breakthrough. We're talking about breaking through some of the barriers in marketing's evolution. We're asking all of our guests something a bit more on the personal side, just reflecting back. Tell me about a breakthrough moment in your career in any capacity, whatever that means to you.
Oh gosh. I'm like speechless now. Okay, so breakthrough moment in my career. I'm not going to say that there were a lot, but I think there were a lot of mini breakthroughs. So I'll just say a mini breakthrough is when I had been at a startup for 8 years. In the beginning of my career, while I was there, I got married. I had my 2 kids. I really did a lot of growing up, but I did do it very early in my career, and I got to a point where I said, okay, I'm kind of done with this. I don't really know what I want to do next, and I quit my job and I started my own company, and that was scary.
Oh yeah.
But I needed more control over my life. And it was something that I felt like I needed to do, and it was very good. I did not have the greatest self-confidence. It was a great confidence booster that I was able to do it. It also put me more in control of my life. But when you start your own business, all of your customers are now your bosses. Mm-hmm. So it was a very good learning experience for me. I started my own business, and it was great, and it was successful. And then I moved back to actually working for another company and resigning all my clients because I realized I don't want to have 800 bosses.
Yeah.
Or however many clients I had. Like, it was just,
I go to sleep at night.
Exactly. So for me, the breakthrough was the quitting and starting my own business, but then also recognizing when I wanted to not be doing that anymore.
I've had a similar experience working for myself and not working for myself, hustling for my own paycheck versus getting a paycheck. And, it's very much like time of life dependent. Mm-hmm. And so many learnings. Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great to talk to you. Really enjoyed it.
Love Skai.
You heard her.
Thanks.